Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jeff. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. Do I need to do headphones and a mic, or is this good enough?
Hey, I can hear you just fine. If you can hear me, we're all good.
Awesome. Perfect. Perfect. Good stuff. Where are you located?
I am in Mississippi, man.
Oh, what part?
I'm in a small town called Wiggins. It's in between Hattiesburg and Biloxi, so it's way
Yeah,
out
yeah.
there.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, I have a bunch of friends from Clinton and from Hattiesburg.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man. Um, Thanks for doing this,
Absolutely.
Jeff. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, how'd you find me on there?
Man, what was I doing? Maybe I was on Instagram and I had seen somebody share your post or it was something along those lines. And I was like, hey, um, let's check this guy out because they were like, this guy's music is great, yada yada. And so I had listened and I was like, this guy's actually, and then I would looking at your credits of what you've done, and I said, wow, this guy fits my podcast bill perfectly. So just let's see where it goes from a hey, you want to do the podcast? And here we are now.
Awesome. Good stuff. Awesome. Well, yeah, it works out well. I just finished up one session. I've got to go. We're producing another album, so I've got to go over there in about an hour or so. So this worked out fine. I got a good little pocket right now. I just had a t-shirt on, so I wasn't sure. I just want to change my shirt. I didn't know if it was video or not.
No, cool, man. You were fine. If you wanted to, I had somebody do it without a shirt on one time. It wasn't awkward for me. It was just, hey, if that's what you're comfortable in, go ahead. I don't think it's the most professional, but
I don't want to drive the fans too nuts, man. You know, I'm 50, man. That's okay. If I was maybe 20 back in the day.
so your days are pretty hectic today, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty wild. We've got two artists in town, and I'm finishing up my record this week, and yeah, so this is a good little break right now, and then I got to jump back in probably in about an hour.
Yeah. Man, what's crazy for me is I'm usually always running all over the place because I do this podcast, I do another one, then I run a production company, and I just got finished doing a movie, and so it's just kind of all over the place. But then
That's great.
a couple of weeks ago, my family was like, "Hey, your sister just tested positive for COVID."
Oh
So
shit.
I said, "Oh my goodness!" I still live at home with my parents, and I'm going everywhere, and I'm like, "Well,
Are
what?
they okay?
Well." So I was the only one with the vaccine. And so my sister got it, then her boyfriend got it, then my mom and dad got it. And so I'm sitting and they didn't get the vaccine and I'm the only one that did. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to have to take care of everybody
Everyone.
here.
Does your sister live at home too?
Yeah, she's 17, 16, 17.
Oh, so she's at home,
Yeah.
and none of them get the vaccine?
Man, don't even get me started. I told you where I was at. It's now, but here's
Yeah.
the good thing. I don't want to say this as it coming off being like a jerk, but it took them to get it for them to go, I think I'm going to get it because this is 10 times worse than the flu because they were all going, it's either the flu or a sinus infection. And I'm like, well, that's not what I don't know of people that die from a sinus infection, but hey,
Nope.
go right on ahead. But
Yep.
yeah, and there,
There's a bunch of people here who are in the same boat, man. They're just they don't think. I mean, my friend told me that he told me he knew more people who died from the vaccine than
yeah.
COVID, and I'm like,
Mhm.
like prove it. Really?
And what's weird is they
That's
went
not
to the
true.
I was they were like, I took my mom to the doctor. And so I'm sitting there and I had asked questions because, I'd never had, me having the vaccine, I've never had anyone that's had COVID. And so I'm like, what about me? What do I do? I've been vaccinated for 3 or 4 months. And they're like, well, you can still get it. You're just not going to be as rough as they are, and you're not going to die. So,
Right, exactly.
man, I was lucky to just have the sniffles. It was like a normal cold. I was just stuffed
So
up
you
for a few
ended up
days.
getting, so you tested positive also.
No, I didn't test positive. I tested negative. But they told
What
me that the vaccine fought off
could
the
be a false?
COVID. The vaccine fought off the COVID and it just wound up being just a small sinus infection.
Oh, good for you, man.
So I was like, I was just here, and I was like, I'm sitting in the living room alone, and I'm like, well, I can't go to the store. I can't go get some work done. I have to sit at home in my studio and just do nothing. And it was like I was able to catch up on Ted Lasso and start a couple of new
Oh, Lasso is
shows.
awesome, man. Yeah.
Dude, I'm not a big Jason Sudeikis fan. Like, he's just not my type of guy. And then, so of course I wasn't going to check Ted Lasso out when it first came out. But then everybody was like,
Yeah.
Ted Lasso is awesome. And I'm like, yeah, but I like sports. I'm not a sports person. And they're like, just watch it. Man, I'm hooked. I'm on like the very end of the first season. And then they said the second season now you have to wait a week. Like it's an episode a week instead of
Yeah, every
all
week.
together.
Yeah. Nice. You weren't at the episode where the boss, what's her name? The head lady.
No,
Forget her
uh,
name. Whatever. You weren't on the thing where her and Keely, the that young hot girl, you weren't on the episode
uh-uh,
where they have sex in the hotel room, right?
uh-uh.
Oh.
No, no,
Oh shit, okay.
no, I can't. No, man, you're cool.
Yeah,
No,
I might have just blown that one for you.
it's fine. I don't. So, man, you were born in Brooklyn, New York.
Yes.
How
Oh,
does it,
have we been taping already? I thought you were going to tell me. So we've been recording?
dude? I live by ABR. Always be recording.
And then you just do your own editing after?
There you go. That's right.
Smart. Smart, man. Smart.
Just because some like I had Marlon Hargis from the band Exile on, and I
I
was
think you froze.
but I was just talking
Oh,
to
yeah.
I was talking to Marlon from Exile, and we were sitting there, and I had picked up the phone. I said, "Hello, Hodgepodge Podcast," and he immediately goes into, "Well, I started Exile doing this," and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait, hang on a second, sir. Let's calm down a bit." So that was kind of what always made me. Let's always be recording just in case. So yeah, ABR,
I
man.
do that in the studio. When someone's doing like a warm up vocal, I remember one of the record I did on the Spin Doctors guy, Chris Barron, when we
Mm,
had a duo.
mm.
The cellist was warming up, and I looked over at the engineer, and I'm like, just press record on her while she's doing her warm ups. And she did this like, and I said, keep that, put that in front of the song. So the song starts off, boom, and that was it.
That's kind of how the producer of Michael Jackson's Bad happened. Like Michael Jackson was just in the studio, was just warming up, doing his vocal routines, and they were like, "This guy's great. Let's just record it." And then that's how most of the album of Bad came about, was just him in the studio just screwing around. And I think that's
Yeah,
where the best
exactly.
content comes, because it's real. It's right in your face.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. So shoot away, man. What questions you got?
I don't have questions pre-written, but I do have a little bit of notes, so that's just kind of how it goes. I just like to be real, and
Sure,
my
sure.
questions just shoot right at you. So
That's awesome. I love that.
you were born in Brooklyn, New York, right?
Mhm.
And so as a young child, you would sing inside of a tape recorder.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Brooklyn. I grew up about 35 minutes outside New York City, 40 minutes outside New York City. I didn't play an instrument. I was actually a jock. I played sports all the time. My dad was a coach and professor and teacher, and it was all sports for me. I mean, I didn't have a choice growing up, and I just would like sometimes like in between homework assignments, if I had a crush on someone, I'd write like, "Oh, Patrice, I wish I was with you," and I'd write lyrics out. I'd make album covers of pretend band
Yeah.
with like the times of the songs. I'd like make my friends as the players, even though they didn't play instruments, and did that. And then I was at camp for basketball. Probably was like 15 or so, 16, and two guys. One guy played bass, one guy played drums, and they were entered the camp talent contest, and they knew that I wrote because I wrote for the camp newsletter. And they knew that I wrote lyrics, so they asked if I wanted to write a lyric and a melody So basically, I went ahead and I told the bass player, "Okay, play this bass line." I was making it up. Sorry.
No, you're cool.
It's been a long day, man. And told the drummer where to do these fills and wrote this melody and lyric, and we won the contest. And I went home. I told my dad I wanted to learn how to play bass, and he goes, "Well, maybe learn guitar." I took lessons for about 4 weeks, but I was playing basketball. I had a job, and just taught myself when I was like in high school. Didn't really play much. Didn't play like my first shows till I was in college, and I was teaching
Mm,
myself, but never thought of it as going to be a career. I never thought I could do this as a living.
mm.
I just did it for fun. And I mean, I didn't become a full time songwriter until I was almost 34.
Yeah. I was like you growing up, and I would take my favorite bands like Aerosmith. Like I've been a fan of them since I was little. And
Oh, they're amazing.
I would take a piece of copy paper, like printer paper, and I would write out Aerosmith and would just come up with a weird title for an album. And then on the back, I would make 12 tracks. And then when they would put out a new album, I would compare my notes between what I've written and there just to see maybe by happenstance did I take one of those track albums that they were looking for and then they put it on theirs. It was
That's awesome.
it was crazy, because
Cool.
what 6-year-old does that besides me and you, big nerds?
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I mean, the iron, like to me, it was either sports or music for me. I mean, it's like that. That was it. And I grew up listening to the Beatles and Jackson Browne and the Eagles and James Taylor, and that evolved into the Rolling Stones and Van Morrison and Peter Gabriel. I was all over the board, man. Crosby, Stills and Nash, loved it.
Yeah.
Squeeze, so many cool bands. I see
So
you're wearing a Jeff Beck shirt.
yeah, man, that's I had him on the podcast. I was lucky to have him on the podcast, and he's become a really good friend of mine. And so we swapped out t-shirts. I gave him a podcast. He gave me one of his shirts. And so it was just something I threw on today, going to this town. And so he's a
Yeah,
really good dude.
he's based in Nashville,
Right. Yes, he's
right?
he is from like 45 minutes away from my hometown. Like he's literally right
Oh,
up the
no
road.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Really good guy. And I'm glad that
Super talented, but just a really classy dude. Really good guy.
so at age 13, before you went to camp, your mom bought you an album, a Jackson Browne Holdout album.
Cassette, cassette, man.
A
Yeah,
cassette,
cassette.
and they
I
took
was
it
at
to
the
summer camp.
basketball camp. She went to the guy at the record store and she said, "My son likes the Beatles and the Eagles, but he has their CD, he has their cassettes. What would you get him?" And he said, "Get him this new Jackson Browne record, Hold Out." And that just changed my life.
What did it do differently that the Beatles and the Eagles didn't do?
Well, I love the Eagles and the Beatles. Jackson Browne, I just so related to all his lyrics and his melodies, and it was just magic, man. I mean, my counselor stole the cassette from me halfway through the summer, and they gave it back to me when I left. I thought it was gone, and they took it away because I wouldn't stop playing it. And when I got home, I
Okay.
worked at a flea market that my friend's parents had a little shop. I mean, looking back, it was kind of really uncool, but like they gave us $20 for the whole day and an egg sandwich in the morning, and they gave us a piece of pizza for lunch. So basically, we worked from 6 in the morning till about 7. We worked for about 12 to 14-hour days for $20,
Sounds
and
like
we thought
me.
that was a lot. What?
I said, sounds like me doing the podcast.
Yeah. So basically, but what I would do is back then cassettes were $4. So what I would do is I'd take that $20 and every week I would buy a different cassette.
Mm.
I mean, I remember buying like Steely Dan's Greatest Hits because it was a double album, so it cost me more that week. But I remember just getting like a new Jackson Browne until I had them all, and then James Taylor, and just did all that, man. I just loved it. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I just related to him.
Man, James Taylor. I wish I could go back to the first time I heard Sweet Baby James from James Taylor. Oh my goodness, man.
I'm going to see James Taylor and Jackson Browne coming up there on tour. I'm gonna go catch them in New York in a few weeks, and I might even see them in Nashville if I'm still here. But Yeah, I've been very, very lucky to meet both of them over the course of my career, and they're outstanding. I worked with James's daughter, who's just super awesome. And then Jackson Browne loved this record that I did with the guy from the Spin Doctors, and we ended up having dinner with him, and ended up meeting up with him again, and it was just probably one of the highlights of my life.
How is that to you as a kid, loving Jackson Browne, and then he come to you and be like, dude, I love this album you put out. What kind of mindset is that when you hear that? You're probably
Well,
trying not to giddy out, you know, you're trying like, oh my God, he just
well, it's funny. It's funny. I mean, I met him when I worked at BMI in the early '90s,
mhm.
and just introduced myself, and I was very super professional and this and that. But then when I got to have dinner with him about 15 years later, Chris, the guy from the Spin Doctors, was late to dinner, and Jackson Browne's girlfriend was late, so it was just me and him waiting for them for about 20 minutes, half an hour. And all I could think is, be cool, man. Keep it together. Be cool. Don't just be cool, man. Just ask him questions. Let him talk. And he told me some great stories, and he was super nice, man. I mean, he was such a good, down to earth guy, and just super personality, man. It was a pleasure. And then I've gotten to go backstage at the Ryman when he was here, and then my favorite moment was in England. He was playing Royal Albert Hall, and I knew the woman who was his radio, and I went with her. We're backstage, and he saw me, and he's like, Jeff, how's it going? And I was like, is there a camera here, man? Is this like a punked show? It's like, and he turned to his friends and he goes, guys, this is Jeff of the Nashville Cohens. Clara looked at me, and his radio person was like, that's fucking funny.
That's crazy.
So I haven't seen him in a few years, probably about 6 years, but man, part of me wishes I had followed up and called him to like maybe stop by his studio. He kind of gave me an invitation, but I was just like, man, he's just so nice to me and such a cool dude. I'm like,
Right.
I don't need to write with him. I don't need to work with him. I'm happy. I met my hero, and he was even cooler than I thought.
I want to kind of jump around a little bit and I want to play this right here because I want to know, how did you get wrapped up in writing this song?
Sure.
Paw Patrol, we'll be there on the double. Whenever there's
Dude, how did you get into writing that Paw Patrol song?
I could tell you the whole story, and I tell everyone up front, I'm just a small part. All the other songs that you'll mention,
Mhm,
I freaking wrote those. This one, I owned a publishing company, and I'd signed a writer named Scott Crepane, who is just
mhm.
amazing dude, amazing talent. He wanted to get into TV film. As you know, I had done the theme song for Jack and Jill, some Lifetime. I'd done some on Nickelodeon, The X's. I've since done SEC Network and ESPN theme songs, but I've had, God, over 7,500 songs on television and movies. Scott wanted to get into that, so I said, well, why don't we do this? We'll fly you to LA. We'll hook you up with some TV film people. I'll take some meetings and get us some work. So I set him up with this guy. I talked to this woman, Molly Kay, who represented this guy, Michael Schmitty Schmidt, another great dude. And I hooked the two of those guys up to write, and I was going to maybe go write with them that day. And I got an opportunity to meet with Disney and then with Universal. So I said, you guys go write. I'm going to go take some meetings and try to get us more work. So Molly told Schmitty had this like brief about this potential TV show. So Scott and Schmitty wrote the song. And then Scott played it for me, and I was like, oh man, this is cool. Do this, maybe work on that. And we ended up getting it. We ended up getting the theme, but it was a buyout for Nickelodeon. So Nickelodeon took all the publishing. So myself and Molly didn't get any percentage of it. So Molly's like, well, I'm taking 10% of the writer's share. And I'm like, I'm uncomfortable with that. And I talked to Scott, and Scott's like, dude, the song wouldn't be what it was without you. And
Gotcha.
I'm like, I don't want to take the percentage, man. And he's like, no, you actually earned it. So I just said, just give me a small percentage of that one. And I tell everyone my contribution was small to that one. Those two guys were the main writers on that, but I mean, I did, I helped out. But like the other songs on my, all the other BMI awards I've won, the Grammy, not, that stuff I wrote. This one, this one was karma. This was just lucky to be, I mean, I put the right together and did some editing on it and helped out a little bit and added a little bit here and there. But that was those two guys, man. I want them to get lion's share of the credit on that one. I could lie to you, and I mean, my name's on there, and I am a writer on it. But I think it's important to give the proper people credit when they deserve it.
I respect you
And I
for
think
that.
those guys deserve it. I think those guys, there wouldn't have been song without those two guys. Those guys really carried the weight on that tune.
So when Nickelodeon, so they basically just came out and outright, nobody's getting a percentage but the songwriters. Basically, is what they did, and so you
Yeah,
guys
yeah,
just come
well,
in.
but that's common, man. But that's common. I mean,
Right?
ESPN
Yeah,
does
yeah,
that to
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a buyout. It's a buyout. I mean, sometimes it's work for hire where some things they don't even leave you your writer's share.
Right.
I mean, dude, it was $15,000 for the fucking Paw Patrol theme. Nickelodeon bought me and Molly out for $15,000. You don't want to know what that makes per year. They
That's
cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
that was my question. That's why I was leading up to that. Was like with songwriting credits, is how, because I want to know the ins and the outs of it. How does that work in payouts? Like if you're just a songwriter on it, do you
On
get
a Paw Patrol theme or on a radio, everything's different. I mean,
like,
like on
okay,
a
let's
on a
take
regular.
let's take the Paw Patrol. We're talking about that right now. Let's talk about that. Do you get a percentage every time the show's played on TV? How does that work? Are you
Yeah.
signed into a contract? Okay,
Oh no. Well, you sign up with BMI or ASCAP.
okay,
Schmidt, and Kripane and I are all BMI, so BMI pays us quarterly, and we get paid for TV play.
got you.
So we get paid every 4 months X amount of money. Those two guys make a lot more than I do on it because I we gave them a much bigger percentage of the song, and they deserve it.
What's the one
I
song
mean,
in
Molly, on the other hand, I don't know if she deserves the amount she took. She was very greedy, but that was her.
what's the one song in all of your category where you receive, you don't have to say the amount, but you receive the most amount of money from?
Let's see. There's a song I wrote called "Bitch Stole My Hummus." That makes me probably a few million a year.
What?
Yeah.
So you can retire right now and be good for the rest of your life.
Hey, hang on one sec. Hey guys, if you can get me the grapes and put some wine on the table and some cheese, and if you, I'm sorry.
Dude, that's
No,
crazy.
I'm kidding. No, we don't mind making millions a year off bitch stole my
Okay.
hummus.
I
Um,
was, I was like, well, never heard of him before, but I'm going to now.
you're like, I'm looking that song up. Who sang bitch stole my hummus? Let's see. What song? Oh God. Um, I don't know if there's. Crazy for this girl is good for X amount every year. That's
Mhm,
done really well. I mean, from day one, that song has made the most of all the songs. If you start from day one,
mhm,
um, there are certain songs that just consistently earn.
mhm.
But I'd say "Crazy for This Girl," maybe.
So I want to go back to 1990. So you're working in the work writer publisher relations department, and you've
Yeah,
worked with
yeah,
certain acts. And I want to know, what was Jeff Buckley like? Because you got to work with that guy. He died way too young from that drowning accident.
yeah. He did. I got a call the day before it was officially announced from his manager, Dave Laurie, who said, "Look, you're going to hear some shit. People are going to start calling you. Do not just direct every inquiry straight to me. Do not comment. Just tell them you don't know anything." And I said, "Between you and me, is it looking bad?" He goes, "It's looking really bad." So I knew the night before what happened before it was announced the next day. I couldn't tell anyone.
Really? So that was
Yeah, I've got a great photo of me and him in the other room over there. I could tell you how I met him.
Sure, go ahead.
Um, there was a songwriter named, so it started, it's kind of a nice little story in that there was an artist I worked with called Lisa Loeb, who was just tremendous. I mean, tremendous. Probably, I'd say one of the two smartest people I've ever worked with, just in sheer intelligence and just she's tremendous. As I can't say enough great things about her. And she had that song, you say only hear what I want to, which blew up number one.
Yep.
She deserved it. She and I used to go out and see bands all the time. We were, come on, I was 24, she was 22, whatever. We were in the city. My job was to see bands every night. She told me about this kid, Jesse Harris, who was this kind of jazz influenced singer songwriter guy, and thought he was a great. So I signed him up to BMI too. And he told me, he's like, hey man, what are you doing Monday night? I'm going to see this kid at Chenet play at 9 o'clock. He's got every Monday night at Chenet. You want to see him? And I'm like, you want to grab some pizza before, man? Let's get some food. We'll get a glass of wine. We'll go watch this guy. So we watch him, and it's just him and an electric guitar. And he was doing, I mean, I remember he played like a Smiths cover. He played a Zeppelin cover. I think it was predominantly cover songs he was playing. He might have done a few originals, but he blew me away. And I went up to him after it, introduced myself like I would. Like, hey, I'm Jeff from BMI. I'm an assistant there. If you ever want to talk to us about working with us. And he's like, man, I'm just doing my own thing. It's cool. I'm not interested. And I'm like, no worries. Here's my card if you ever want to talk. So Jesse and I went back like every Monday night because he was so good. We were going as fans, man. And one night I'm sitting there watching his show, and this girl comes up to me while he's playing with a cassette and is like, hey man, can you listen to this? And I'm like, after the show, come on. Little respect here. The guy's playing a room of 30 people, 20 people. So after the show, like always, I was like, dude, good show, man. He goes, hold up, man. He goes, I saw what you did with that chick tonight. And I'm thinking, did I hit on his girlfriend? I don't know what I did. I'm like, Jeff, I have no idea. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he goes, that chick tried to give you a cassette, man, but you were so focused on the music, man. You were like, yo, later. You were like, don't talk to me now. This guy's playing. I'm in the music. You were in it. And I go, Jeff, I come down every Monday night because you're one of the reasons I got into the music industry. This is what I love to do. I love to find young talent. I love to work with people. You have to go with BMI or ASCAP eventually. So you know who I am. There is no rush, man. I said, I'm going to keep coming down as a friend and as a fan. And he goes, do you know George Stein? I go, yeah, he's a lawyer here in town. Good guy. He goes, I started working with him, man. Maybe three of us could get together and meet. And I said to him, if you want, I'll bring my boss, the vice president, and we could all have an official meeting. He's like, fuck that, man. Just you, me, and George. And that's how I signed him to BMI.
He sounded like just a cool, chill guy that knew what he wanted, because anybody nowadays, if a publishing company or a producer will come up to and say, hey, I work for yada, yada, boom, automatically, they're going to jump on it. But back in the day,
It was different back then, man.
back in the day was crazy, because it's like the Beatles, if let's just say one day they made an album and it didn't sell, they didn't care. They're like, hey, we're going to send out 6 more albums. Today, it's like, if this album flops, you're done. You're gone. And it's crazy. It's just absolutely
It's just
nuts.
a different time. It's just a different time. I mean, the nice thing about Jeff, and I'll say this, I mean, you talk about the Spin Doctors or Lisa Loeb. I mean, I was at both their weddings. You know what I mean? Like, they're friends for life. Someone like Cara DioGuardi, who, do you know her? She was judge of American Idol.
Sounds familiar.
And probably the top female songwriter, her, Diane Warren, and maybe Hillary Lindsay in the last 20 years. And still to this day, probably, most proud person I signed when I was at BMI, and the hardest worker and just super talent. But like, they're my real friends. I mean, like, I'm still friends with them 25, 30 years later. Jeff was a great guy, someone I worked with, like I wasn't going out calling him to go out for drinks kind of thing. He was a lot cooler than I was. But he was just but once you got to know him, and once he actually did talk a lot, like he wasn't just like chill back, like he talked. He was a good dude. He was a good dude, and it just fucking sucked what happened.
Where is Lisa Loeb at now? Where she just kind of
Lisa
disappeared.
Loeb won a Grammy. She didn't. She won a
Okay,
Grammy for her children's music.
that's right.
She was the
That's
voice.
right. She does a lot of the because in my Walmart, we got a downgraded Walmart. So we still have the things where you press a button and it'll play the certain type of albums, and Lisa Loeb's children's albums up there. That's right. She does a lot of children's stuff.
She won a Grammy for that, and she's also, people don't know this, she was the voice of like some cartoon characters on some shows also, and did very well from that. And she, as I said, she's super smart. She invested well, and she's just a really smart businesswoman and a smart talent and a good talent. And she's always doing some good stuff. So she'll always find a way. She's special.
All right, dude, I want to talk about another song, and then another. We'll go from there because you don't have much time left. But tell me how this song came about.
Postcards from
Sure.
Paris, when I've seen the real thing. It's like finding out.
So the band Perry, which are Mississippi
Yeah,
natives as well,
they
posted
were from
from
Mississippi.
Paris.
Yeah.
So did you write that with
Um,
Kimberly? Was she a co-writer on that?
oh yeah, yeah. It was
Okay.
Kimberly and Cara DiGuardi and
Yep.
Kimberly. And Kimberly basically told Cara and I she had this idea. She had, I guess, been on a date, like 2 dates, 3 dates with this one guy, and she said things were okay. They weren't bad. And then this other guy walked in the restaurant, and she caught his eye, and she was like, "Oh my God." She goes, "It was like," she said, "it was like having a postcard from Paris, but now that I've seen the real thing, I want to be there." And she told us that story, and she said it was like a postcard from Paris, with him as opposed to the real thing. And he's like, "That's the worst thing that could have happened. That guy walking in that restaurant, it just ended the other relationship." So we wrote a song about it.
And it went to what, number 5 on the country airplay
Number
charts?
five, yeah,
Something like
number
that.
five, and and it got a BMI award too. Yeah,
So I wonder when
yeah.
you're
Kimberly's a great writer.
when you're
What?
s- when- I'm wondering when you sit in, when you're writing with different artists, what has been the one thing, or what's been the one thing that was just like, I can't believe your mind came up with that. That's such a brilliant idea to write about.
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I will say, like Jaron, who I worked with on Crazy for This Girl, Evan and Jaron, he
Mhm.
came up with some cool melodies. Probably, I would say there was an artist named Taitor. Now, Taitor was the first artist I really helped develop. And John Mayer took a liking to what we were doing and took us on tour and went on CNN and said it was his favorite song, the song called One and Only that was on there. But Taitor has an ear for music, and when Taitor sits at a piano or picks up a guitar, his ear goes to places that other humans would never, not only would never think to go, shouldn't even be allowed to go. He is that creative, and he'll play like a lick or something, and I just am like, oh my God, we're gonna have fun now.
Mm.
Here come the lyrics and the melodies, man. Keep playing that shit. That's good. He is just an off the charts musical talent. So I would say if you go back and listen to some of the early Titor, or even any the latest Titor, everything, the guy is just consistently doing some musical stuff that'll blow your mind.
Mm. So John Mayer took you guys out on tour.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that
So
that
Titor, yeah,
John Mayer, John Mayer is my favorite artist of all time. So I'm kind of like, what's this guy like? Because they say don't meet your heroes, and so I've heard a little bit
well, I
of.
met I met I met Jackson Browne, and he was one
That's
of the
true.
coolest people I ever met in my life.
That's true. So what's
Yeah,
the
John was very nice to us. I mean, he was very supportive. I mean, we like to think that his song, what was it, slow dancing in a
dancing in a
burning
burning
room. You know
room?
that song? Go back and listen to our song "Let's Go Dancing," and some of that tied to our first record, John was definitely influenced by that. Um, he was a real supporter. He was very into what we were doing at the time.
I'm writing that down because I'm going to go listen to that because I love that stuff where it's like, because Jake Owen's getting sued because Made for You was, somebody wrote or something like whatever. And I love those type of things where it's just like, you can only make a sound like so many different things before you just come out of.
Yeah, and I think in John's case, I think he was just inspired by the
Oh, right.
song. I
Yeah, yeah,
think his,
yeah, yeah.
no, I've had songs that were blatantly ripped off before, which I didn't appreciate. I think he was just inspired and influenced.
So what do you do when one of your songs is ripped off? If you don't go the lawsuit way, kind of what do? You just let it be?
Next question. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. I've just had some bad experiences with that.
So,
I'm gonna take the high road.
okay. Plead the fifth.
There's a lot of very unethical, uncool people in the music industry. Is all I will say.
Oh, I agree, 100%. So I understand where you're coming from. So obviously you do a lot of interviews and you've done a lot of interviews. So I'm just curious, what's one question ahead of time that you're always going to get asked in an interview, no matter what type
Oh,
of interview it is?
yeah, all the time. Like what my relationship is with Julia Roberts now, and I tell everyone we're cool, and there's really nothing to talk about.
Right.
She's great.
Do a little background because I'm a little lost here.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Did you date Julia Roberts?
nothing to say about it. She's awesome, and she's great. She's a beautiful girl.
Okay, because you do
But
know
that
there's
that question comes up a lot. But if you mean like a business question,
just in
a lot of
general.
people ask. Yeah, a lot of people ask. Um, how is the transition? Well, they're like, did you always know you wanted to be a songwriter? And the answer to that's no. I mean, when I left I was going to go to law school after college. I took a job at Macy's, and I thought I was 23. I was like, man, I'm not a great singer. I'm not a great guitar player. I think I can write a song, but you can't make a living doing that. I didn't know. My dad was a teacher in Brooklyn, and we didn't come from a family of industry, but I thought I knew what was good. So I said, I want to try to find the next U2 or the next James Taylor. And I wrote to every record label in New York and asked if I could be a secretary there and work in their A&R department, and no one wrote me back. So I took a temp job in the collection accounting department, marketing of BMI, and just worked my way into the music department and got super lucky and found a lot of bands. If I hadn't gotten sick when I was 32, 33 and had to be out of work for a while, I probably might not have had the balls to quit and become a writer. I might have stayed at BMI and been senior VP right now. It's a great company. BMI was, I mean, anyone who's looking to get into the music industry, if you want to work for a company, BMI is it. I mean, they're just freaking great company. I had a great 9.5 years there, and I would it have been nice to have been a songwriter in my 20s and early 30s when I had all that drama going on, and if a girl didn't call me back, I can't sleep and my stomach hurts, and I'd write about it? Yeah, I would have loved to have been a songwriter. I would have been really good, but I wouldn't have had all those experiences I had at BMI, and I wouldn't have been able to work with all those super talented people. So, it's kind of meant for a reason, I guess. And was it difficult transitioning from music executive to songwriter? Yeah, no one took me seriously. Everyone's like, great, you almost died, and now you think you could be a songwriter. Call us when you're ready to come back.
Mm,
I mean, I had songs in the top 3, top 5, and people still asking me if I played an instrument.
right.
Some people, had there's one song that was a big hit in Australia and Canada, all over the world, and my friend's like, so dude, so you just go in there, you change a few words? I go, wow, I wrote it myself. I must have changed a lot of words. Yeah.
So what is one question you never get asked? And you're just like, I want to get asked about this in an interview, and you never do.
Yeah, no one asked me about like what kind of hair products or beauty products I use. It never comes up, man.
Well, man, do you use just for men? a lot?
No, I don't, man. I just let it go. I mean, I'm salt and pepper, man. I just let it go. I just natural, man. Natural. Sometimes I use a little Aveda shampoo, for men, but and shave my own beard, so it's fun. What question am I never asked? That's a really good question, man. I like that a lot. Um, oof. So I get asked a lot of the same questions, like what's the favorite song you wrote, who your
Yeah.
influences, who's your favorite artist you worked with. Um, I don't know. What question do I want to be asked that I'm never asked? No one's ever asked that question. That might be the question. That might be the best question I was ever asked.
Well, I'm honored to have that slot there. Let me know if
Yeah.
somebody. Let me know if somebody beats me out of it. I'll come up with something else.
Yeah, dude, that was good. That was good.
So, man, as we wind down here, I just got a couple more questions left for you.
Yeah, sure.
So, in
Sure.
2012, you started a publishing company, which was
Yeah.
titled Silent Gate Music, and then 2013 it
Which I
changed
switched
to Nashville
to
International
Nashville
Music. What was the
Yeah,
reasoning behind the name changing, and what
two
exactly
reasons.
are you?
Yeah, no, I can tell you. Originally, there was a company in Sweden called Scandinavian Songs that had agreed to finance Silent Gate. We were going to be partners, 50-50 partners. And then one of the guys, Scandinavian Songs were two guys. This guy Hans Desmond, who had been president of Warren Chappell, and a guy named Sanjay. Sanjay had been president of Warner Records, and Hans was a completely upstanding, great dude, and Sanjay not so much. He did some stuff and ended up reneging on payment and stiffed me with the $75,000 I'd already paid for two advances. I had paid for an assistant, the song plugger. I was paying for the office, and Scott Crepane we were working with, Christian Bush from Sugarland, this other girl from Australia we signed, and I basically had to float the whole company that year. And I just said to them, if you don't get me my money by the end of the year, the only smart thing I did was I signed everyone to my company. And I said, once you give me the money, then it'll be our company. And they never gave me the money. Um, Hans stepped up and gave me a little bit out of his own pocket in the meantime, just to cover some costs, but like minimal. And at a certain point, I just said, you know what? Out. So I switched the name, and I had agreed on Silent Gate with them, so I changed it. And I saw a documentary on Philadelphia international music, Gamble and Huff, all the Philly sound from the '70s.
Right.
And I'm like, how does no one have Nashville International? We were a company based in Nashville that did international work, so we were all over the place. So I thought that would be a great idea. That was a really stupid idea, because think about this: when you're in Europe or you're in Asia or you're in New York or LA, if you hear the company Nashville International, what do you think?
Airport.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Airport.
Okay, after in terms of music,
I don't know.
what music comes out of Nashville?
Oh, country music. Okay.
Everybody
Gotcha.
thought we were just a country publisher, so it really kind of hurt on that, because people were like, "Oh, we don't do country." I'm like, "Well, neither does the writer I'm sending you."
Hmm.
So might not have been the smartest name for a publishing company, but I don't know. It's easy to spell.
It is. And you got to keep it. But the thing is, you have to keep explaining what your product is, which is a good thing, because it's like new people out there. They're like, oh wait, this is not just a country music thing. This is all type of international music.
Yeah, and we had one writer signed us. This kid Nikhil. We got him a big six-figure record deal in England and London, and he was super talented. And unfortunately, he's a poster boy for, if you hire two friends who really aren't in the music industry, who think they know everything, your career will fall apart.
Mm.
And it was very unfortunate to watch that. You know what, man? You look at someone like Cara Diaguardi, you look at someone like Lisa Loeb. I'll tell you, probably, I'd say the best example. Do you know the band Sugarland?
Absolutely.
Okay, you look at Christian Bush.
Hmm.
Jennifer Nettles.
Mhm.
Christian Bush and Jennifer, they work so damn hard. They are so focused. They are so driven. They're so talented. There's a reason why they're so successful.
Mhm.
Because you combine talent with work ethic. And that's the lesson I learned at Nashville International. Is I was used to working with the Christian Bushes and the Cara Diaguardis. I just thought people wanted it as bad as they did, or wanted it as bad as I did. And I learned some artists, whether they're just financially set to start with, whether they're just lazy, some people just don't have the same work ethic, man, and that's going to catch up to you. If you do not have the work ethic, it's going to catch up to you, man. It's not just about talent. It's called the music business. It's not called the music fraternity party.
Yeah, man. Well,
There's
Jeff.
a lot that needs to get done.
Well, Jeff, I appreciate your time on here. I know you got to go. Thanks for doing it. You can go follow Jeff Cohen at Jeff Cohen Music on Instagram. It was great having you on, and I hope you enjoyed the chat we had here. It wasn't the best,
Absolutely,
I
man.
know, but
Well, no, dude, it's good. I mean, it's always a pleasure talking to people who have a real sincere love of music, and I can tell right away
yep.
that you're passionate about music, man. You're passionate about getting out there. You wouldn't have done this podcast and started this if you weren't. But I could tell, I could tell you're like an encyclopedia of songs and music and bands and stuff, which is always great to meet someone else who who really is doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate that, and same right back to you. I think we could sit here and bum off artist after artist and name albums after albums. So, well, look, man.
Exactly. Well, man, I wish you.
When you get your new stuff out, we'll get you back on and get you on promoted.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, we're finishing a record right now. It's being produced by Jeff Trott. You know Jeff? He produced all the show, wrote the Sheryl Crow songs, produced
Right.
Sheryl Crow.
Yes.
And I'm working on it with him the next few days, and hopefully that'll be done soon. And I think I'm going to go back on tour and start playing again. And once this COVID thing gets a little more friendly, and definitely in the UK, and start playing around the States, and my attitude for anyone out there who's doing music is just figure out a way to keep doing this for the rest of your life. And a lot of times what you think is winning might end up being a different version of it. Like what you think you might be meant to do, there's so many different aspects of the music industry. There's so many different ways to win, and to just keep doing it and just figure out your strengths and work hard at it. And I think there's a way to do it. You just got to figure it out.
Jeff, I'll let you go. Again, thank you for your time doing this, and I really do appreciate it. I'll let you know when it's up on the podcast and all that.
You got it, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a
Thanks.
good one. Yep. Bye.